The trifecta for pet peeves of Dr. Joe is strategy, branding, and guerrilla marketing. And the reason why is people talk about it without actually understanding it. So, we move on to the second part, which is branding. And so, what is branding? Why is it so important? When you think of a product, what's the first thing that comes to mind? That's your first impression. That's your perception of a product, and that's why branding is so important. And so today we're going to talk about what is a brand, how do we evaluate it, how do we leverage it, and finally, how do we measure it. So when I engage a product, what values come across? Like if I engage Walmart, what comes across? Well, it's cheap. There's a lot of stuff. And so that's all Walmart is. On the other hand, if I walk into a Neiman Marcus, what do I want? It's high end, it's more elegant. And so totally different experiences, but you see what the values are. So what is a brand? And what a brand is, it's an expression of the values of your product or service. A brand is a promise. This is what you as a company say to the consumer. This is what you can always count on me for. This is what I am. And finally, technically what a brand is, it's a name, term, sign, symbol, or design. And so, for example, Intel, part of their brand is that little tune. Dun 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 dun. Yeah, I'm tone deaf. But that's part of their brand that goes along with their visual image. And so the thing is, these brands and their copyrights or trademarks stand out and make an impression with you. Brands are everywhere. We see them as, we don't even need any writing. Just from those images alone, you know what those corporations are. They're part of products. Materials can even be branded, and whole families of products. Or should I say, a galaxy of products. Ba-da-da-boom. Anyway, the most valuable brands in the world are listed here, and you've heard of all of them, except for number 10, and what that actually is a Chinese bank. The interesting thing is all these brands are growing. The only one that isn't is Apple, and that's maybe because we're saturated on Apple. The thing is, brand loyalty isn't what it once was. I mean, for you millennials, you'll trade in brand loyalty for a good discount. So does it still matter? And yes, it does. And the reason why is, in this age, we've never had so many options of products before. I mean, go into your local grocery store, look at the number of different kinds of soup. Low sodium soup, homemade soup, organic soup, all different kinds of soups in different cans in different sizes. I mean, it's just insane. So what do? Go on Amazon, type in any product, and all of a sudden you've got 10 pages worth of products to look at. But the value of the brand is, I know it, I trust it. And so in a sea where you're just getting inundated, you can pick it. And now, once you pick a certain product, the question is, can they build up your loyalty over time? In terms of enterprises, it gives you these benefits. It differentiates you. It defines your segment. It does a lot of things to define you as a business. Now, what brand equity is why they're willing to pay so much more over what it's actually worth. And that's that people will pay more for Apple than they will for anything else. For clothes, what's the big joke? You're paying for the label. And there's a certain degree of truth to that. If it says Louis Vuitton on it, a Louis Vuitton bag has something more, and the knockoff could be just as good. For consumers, brand equity is about what is the image. Not only you being aware of it, but it's also what do you associate this brand with? Like when you think of Tesla, you think of the future. When you think of Ford, you think of the past. I mean, those are the associations you make with those car brands. And there's also secondary associations. Are there people who endorse it? Are there people who recommend with it? You don't think of mustard without thinking of ketchup. There are things that also go along with your brand. And in terms of an enterprise, a brand means assets. And that's that the associations and awareness and everything else give value to your company. Now, brand salience is about the awareness and associations that you make with it. So as we talked about before, it's about the attributes, functionally, whatever the benefits, and then personalities about symbolic and emotional benefits. So the objective of my brand is to do three things. One is to communicate to you what are my values. But I need to do more than communicate. I have to resonate with you. Meaning it doesn't go in one ear and out with the other. I can connect with it. It stays with me. And it stays with me enough that it stimulates me to actually go out and do something. So we talked about the attributes and personality benefits of the brand. So what does that brand do? It communicates. It can communicate to us. It resonates with us. And it stimulates us. So in terms of values, for a brand, you can't talk about everything. So what are the one or two most important values that go into your brand? You have to know how that connects with your customer. How do you target with it? And is it consistent over time? This is why, for example, companies pick color schemes, and they stick with those color schemes because that's the way you remember it by. And so you have to test these things and see whether or not they actually work. And this is a case of where you don't necessarily want to do Likert scaling or things like that. You actually want to understand what people mean. So how do I go about making a strong brand? Well, it's about inputs, putting it into something, and what comes out on the other end. And the inputs are my brand elements and the associations with it. And how do I transform it? I do that for my marketing mix. My marketing mix has to support the brand. If there are inconsistencies, then you have a weak brand. So for example, if I have a mass consumption product, how am I going to distribute it? I'm going to distribute it in a Costco or a Walmart or something like that. And so subsequently my promotion has to be mass marketed. And that's it. I can put ads and flyers, for example, that go on every driveway because I have a mass consumption product. Everything's consistent. And so subsequently what comes out the output are things like brand loyalty or awareness or associations. And so what does that all mean? It means that I can resist competition. My elasticity can protect me from either prices going up or prices going down. I have licensing opportunities, and I can do brand extensions, which we'll talk about later. But there's a number of benefits that come out of being loyal to my brand or having a perceived quality of my brand. How do brands evolve? Well, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. And the evolution that your brand goes through is first you focus on differentiation. How are you unique? How are you different than somebody else? Next step is relevance. Essentially, why is this relevant to me? How is it appropriate to me, and how does it connect to me? The next part is esteem. How do I feel when I use this product? And finally, knowledge. How well do I know this product and understand the brand and what it stands for? And so this is the journey that you take the customer on. In terms of differentiation, it drives everything. If you lose differentiation, it's all over because you're not unique. You're just another face in the crowd. And so if you're another face in the crowd, they have no reason to select you. Manufacturers have no reason to expect any kind of loyalty, and basically your pricing now is based on the cost of things as opposed to perception and benefit. In terms of brand strength, what brand strength is a combination of the first two steps, differentiation of relevance. This is the first thing you try to build up, is the strength of your brand. And so the issue with brand strength is if your differentiation is greater than your relevance, then you have room to grow, meaning you connect with people, but you're different. If your relevance is greater than your differentiation, then you could be commoditized. An example of that is toilet paper. Definitely relevant. But, they try to differentiate each other, but a lot of them are just the same. And so what ends up happening is if you have brand strength, you can charge more for margin because you're unique. Relevance allows you to penetrate into certain markets. And finally, you need that differentiation to create a strong brand. Brand stature is about esteem and knowledge. And I will talk about that in the next video.